Why is Howard Stark so important? Why is the Maker living in Latveria? Why did the Hulk turn away from the dark side of the Force to become a Jedi? This issue creates so many new questions and answers very few. And let's be honest, issue 1 was mostly fluff. Hickman used most of those pages just to tell us that the Maker escaped from prison, he built a portal to another reality, and the Illuminati have reformed to stop whatever his plan is. It wasn't until the epilogue that things really started moving. We know his plan vaguely to be that he intends to rebuild the Ultimate Universe in a way that suits his designs, and from what we see in this issue, he mostly seems to do that. And this creates some interesting as well as some weird changes to this reality. For instance, in the epilogue of issue 1, he prevented the origin of Peter Parker from becoming Spider-Man. In issue 2, he stops the creation of the Fantastic Four by delaying their rocket flight, which causes them to miss the cosmic rays. He puts Loki in charge of Asgard. He somehow alters Bruce Banner to make him docile but still a Hulk. And he sets up Howard Stark to become Iron Man, as well as Obadiah Stane to be War Machine. And we can't forget to mention the fact that the world is divided up into nation states. You have the American technocracy, led by Stane Stark Industries. You have what I assume is like a new Soviet Union, led by Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magic, and Peter Rasputin, aka Colossus, as well as Omega Red. You also have the Pacific Alliance, led by Shiro Yoshida, also known as Sunfire, Viper of either the Hand or Hydra, as well as the Silver Samurai, though I presume it's Shingen Harada, the son of the original Silver Samurai based on his design. And then you also have the Hulk and his acolytes, presumably ruling some part of the world as well, and there are other people off panel. The Maker, with his city being in Latveria, seems to be the ruler of all, similar to how God Emperor Doom ruled over the various domains of Battleworld during Secret Wars. He's likely able to rule over them because he has greater technology than the technocracy, greater forms of evolution than the mutant-led Soviet Union, greater power than the Pacific Alliance, and greater enlightenment than the Hulk and his people. Plus, it helps that he's controlling the Hulk. At least I can assume that this is all the case, we're not explicitly told. Something else interesting about this world is the lack of Captain America. As in, he never existed in the first place, and the Maker is unsure why, which tells me that he didn't build this world from scratch. He found a world that was either more similar to Earth 1610 or more similar to Earth 616 and altered it to make it the best of both worlds, as this Earth is called 6160. From this issue, we also now know how he altered things. He used a time travel device presumably built by Howard Stark called the Immortus Engine. The Immortus Engine shares its name with the character Immortus, who in a nutshell is the end stage of Kang the Conqueror, the time-traveling villain. It doesn't seem like Howard Stark would know who Immortus is, but he also doesn't seem to know that he built this machine in the first place, which is weird. Unless the Maker in the future had him build the machine and then took the time machine back into the past before he even met Howard Stark. Now, there are immediate consequences to the Maker's actions. Namely, an army from the future has sent two groups of people, at least one of them made up of cloned Ultimates, those being Thor, Wasp, Vision, Captain America, and Thor. During the first attack, which was made up of unknown assailants, the group destroyed half of the Maker's head, damaging his memory as well as the Immortus Engine. Now, the second attack takes place when the world delegates arrive and they get into this huge brawl, but the Maker captures the remaining clones and destroys them by gathering their gene seeds, or rather, the people whose descendants would make up the raw material for the cloned Ultimates. And by doing that, the clones disappear. You know, like if you went back in time and killed your grandfather, you would be wiped from existence. What's interesting is that there were clones of Captain America. But if Captain America never existed in this world, how did they get his DNA to make the clones in the future? Also, who is sending the clones? Now, this is kind of a spoiler if you're paying attention to the solicits for the next issues. But in issue 3 and 4, it's mentioned that Doom and Kang are both going to make an appearance. So logic would say that a version of Kang is sending cloned Ultimates back in time. But again, how is he getting the Cap DNA? As I said, this issue creates a lot of questions. If you've read a lot of Hickman's work, then you know that he likes to tell stories out of order. Meaning, he'll usually start in the middle of the story, work his way back to the beginning, and then lead into the end. He did it in his run of Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., House and Powers of X, and he might be doing it here. So it's possible that we could learn how the Maker came up with a plan to alter another universe while he was in prison, as well as how he got Howard Stark to build him the time machine and whether or not he came into conflict with someone who wants revenge against him. Granted, there are only 4 issues and we're already halfway done. I get that this story revolves around the Maker and that it will lead into a rebooted Ultimate Universe. But honestly, I'm far more interested in this universe itself and its background than the story. Because if you look at the various aspects of this universe, it's weird to see what parts of the 616 and 1610 universes were either already present or altered in this universe. For instance, the Fantastic Four went into space in a rocket and would have come into contact with cosmic rays, which is the 616 origin. In the 1610 origin, they built a portal to the negative zone. Similarly, Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk after getting hit with gamma radiation in 616. In 1610, he injects himself with a faulty super soldier serum. And Peter Parker, his origin is pretty much always the same. As for Thor, the character definitely resembles the Ultimate Universe, so I'm going to assume his origin is more similar to that one. But the most interesting change to me is Stark and Stain. First, Howard Stark shouldn't be part of this generation, either in the 616 or 1610 universe, meaning he's too young. He's old enough to have a teenage son, Tony Stark, but not so old that he even has gray hair. So he's basically a little older than what age Tony would be in most realities as Iron Man. The problem that I have with that is that Bruce Banner is an adult, and usually, Tony is relatively close in age to Bruce Banner. Now, the Maker did say that he changed Howard's past, but I just assumed that he saved him from dying at some point so that he would become Iron Man instead of Tony. So either Howard Stark has always pushed forward a generation, or Hickman is just ignoring the other continuities. Because it's not like the Maker could delay the conception of Howard Stark so that he's born later. And then, of course, there's Stain, who's a good guy, which is weird. And I think they race swapped his character in order to make him the roadie to Howard Stark, because he does have War Machine armor. Before we wrap up this video, I wanted to lastly talk about this list that the Maker has marking high-value targets. Large threats to him that he stole from Earth 616 Reed's lab. Through this chart, you can infer some different ways in which he altered the universe. He has the brain of Jim Hammond, who is the original Human Torch from the late 30s. He didn't exist in the Ultimate Universe, so it's interesting that he's here. Captain America's designation is unknown, because like I said, he never existed here. Bucky Barnes existed, but he's dead, and the Maker took a blood sample from him. Robert Grayson is an interesting subject. He was a character introduced in the early 50s as part of the 616 universe. He was basically an augmented human with the quantum bands that give him the ability to fly and shoot energy. You don't really hear about him in Marvel Comics much anymore, so it's strange that they added him to the Ultimate Universe. Jack Monroe, another interesting inclusion, was a retcon that Marvel used to explain how Bucky and Cap were still fighting in the 50s, despite the disappearance of the originals, as was told in Avengers issue number 4. This Bucky fought alongside a guy named William Burnside, who was pretending to be Steve Rogers and Captain America. Thor is captive, and the Maker took from him the Destroyer Seed. Not sure what that is. Howard Stark is controlled. Reed Richards is controlled. So this reality's Reed Richards has no powers, and he's a pawn of the Maker. Also, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm are all deceased. Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne are both inactive, but the Maker has taken the Pym generators from them. So does that mean they never became heroes? Bruce is controlled, which we already know. Peter Parker is inactive, and we know why that is from issue 1. Stephen Strange is captive, along with the Eye of Agamotto. So the only magic user that we know of, and the only god who is also a hero that we know of, are both captives. All the super soldiers and other people that would have had powers are either dead or inactive, but the scientists still exist and are being controlled. I've also not seen anything to point to the idea that Charles Xavier or Magneto or Namor or T'Challa exist, which is interesting. It's unfortunate that there are only 2 more issues because there's so much of this world that I want to know. But I would love your guys' feedback on this video. Tell me what you think about Earth 6160 and what other mysteries might be revealed before the series is over. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you never miss out on a new video. Thanks for watching.